Okay, and apologize if anybody's watching and we're a little bit late. All right, so do we need to make a motion to approve the agenda?
Probably. I
Okay,
move we approve the agenda.
I second that.
You don't need a second, Sonia. Small.
Okay, by
Now we vote.
acclamation,
I
though.
vote
Oh,
yes.
okay. Does any, okay, let's all vote. All right, Joe, there you go. Okay, so by acclamation or a unanimous vote, we approve the agenda. So we did have minutes, but and we'll post them online. Unfortunately, they didn't get submitted in time, but we do have previous minutes. We'll put them online, and then we can approve them at our next meeting. So there you go. Okay, so our first, we'll just go ahead and so basically the first item of business is talking about, because we have the AGM coming up, and part of what the document review committee does is deal with any types of bylaw changes that you may need to clean up our governing documents, make them current, or make, if there's a conflict between other policies of the law, etc., just cleaning that up. So hold on just a sec, Nancy, and I'll let me get the screen share. So we have a couple of policies that just one sec. Sorry, I thought I had it up. I just have to. Shoot. Okay, you can talk, Nancy, if you want, while I'm looking for your document. You want to just introduce like the first one, and then, well, because I have to actually.
Which one are we going to do first?
So do you want to just review like the bylaw change from the NNE, since that's already been presented kind of at the board, and we're just going to walk through that one too while I'm looking for it, since it's kind of a familiar.
The bylaw amendments?
Yeah, the bylaw amendment.
The one to allow everybody to vote.
Right.
Okay.
I'm really sorry. I thought I had it. I thought I had this up, but for some reason it's not fine.
Anyway, I think I've sent this around a couple of times, and basically what we have in our bylaws now is that only people who are in good standing can vote for everything. And people who aren't in good standing can only vote for the budget, which is kind of meaningless now that Community Associations Institute successfully lobbied the ledge to change it to account of all voters, all members, rather than just all voters. When it was all voters, oh, hey, it's working.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's a really, oh, that's a different one, but that's okay too.
Oh, this is the one that you just sent me.
I sent you 3. This is,
I'm so sorry. Sorry. Sorry about that. Sorry. Go ahead and keep talking.
well, we can do this one.
I didn't read it.
It's interesting too. They're all
Let's go ahead and go. We'll stick with what we're doing. Let me just pull it up. I didn't read it. I just popped it up there. Okay. Go. It's coming right now. Just one sec.
Okay, well, the idea is if you can't vote for the board of directors, you're not really voting on the budget, because it's the board of the directors that determines what goes on the ballot. So what this bylaw does is open voting to, voting. Open voting on the board of directors to all members. And once you do that, you might as well just include everything. So, because that's really the main piece.
Right. Right, agreed. So do you want to go through anything particular on here? What do you want to just read it?
Well, I could read it,
Or we can just,
or we
I
could,
can just, yeah, we can just talk about, I think we're pretty much all in agreement on this one. I read over it. I don't really have, so you've got like ballot language question. I mean, you got a question here. It goes, shall the Sun Valley Community Association members amend Bylaw Article 2, Section 7, voting to allow all members to vote for directors, committee members, proposed budget items, and any other issues or items on an AGM or SGM, regardless of standing. Additionally, shall the requirement to allow in-person at the meeting floor voting on ballot issues or items be removed from the bylaws? The only thing is I'm not sure, and that's the thing where we have to ask the attorney is we may have to make these two separate ballot measures. I'm not actually sure. So
they're both in that same section 7, in the same paragraph.
okay.
If you go to the next one where it says detailed changes, it's all.
But the problem is that what if somebody wants to vote? What if somebody wants to vote? You put them in one question, right?
Right.
So what if somebody wants to vote to allow everybody, no matter their standing, to vote, but they don't want to vote to remove the floor balloting, which is, I'm not saying that there's anybody that's like that, but I just mean, what if, for instance, they did want that? Then we're now locked them into, you're asking them a two-part question. I don't know that we can do that. I think we might have to separate them.
If the attorney says separate it, of course,
Okay.
you separate it, and there's a good point to be separated.
Okay. So is there any other discussion? Joel, you okay? Oh, he's on mute.
Yeah, he is on mute.
Yeah.
I can see that, Joel.
Hey,
You're
sorry.
on mute.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
It's okay.
No, I think it makes sense to have it as two separate items,
Okay.
just because it sounds like two different issues. And
Okay.
I think didn't floor voting got voted down last year, right? But it was somewhat close.
Floor voting was impossible because of our setup with the
Yeah,
Unilat.
but it was well, no, I think it was on the ballot though, whether or not we wanted to remove that at the last AGM, right?
I don't remember that. Do you, Sonia?
Okay.
Yeah, it was on there, and I don't know. I thought there was some issue with it. And unfortunately, who's in this audience here? Is it Linda?
Yeah, Linda would be the person to ask, I guess.
That's what I was just thinking, because
There were a bunch of bylaw amendments, and I only paid attention to the one on direct initiative because that's the only one I cared about. And that did pass. The others didn't. So,
but I think it was pretty close. And it is, I mean, it's given all the other things that people are voting down, I think it's worth asking again and letting people know we support it just for efficiency and why, and if there are costs involved.
Okay.
Sorry, we have another participant.
Are you guys okay? Since this is a casual meeting, Linda is actually the person that's online. Is everybody?
We have to make a motion to invite Linda into the conversation.
Since it's casual.
I'm not sure if she's available, but we can.
Is that okay, Nancy? And then we could probably get an answer on the floor voting.
Let's just agree to separate them.
Okay.
And that I'll write them up separately and send them, or you can just send it to the attorney and say, what do you think about this?
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I just was wondering if we've already voted on it, we might need to. That's why. Okay. All right.
No, because this is a separate session.
Okay,
You voted it at the last AGM. It
okay,
doesn't matter. We
Okay.
can't vote, if we vote down an issue, we cannot bring it up again at the same session.
no,
And
I
this
meant,
is a
I thought we
separate
passed it.
session.
That's why.
Oh, no,
And that's why I was asking. I
no,
thought it was
no, no,
passed.
no.
Oh, that's why I was
Only
like,
one
Oh.
bylaw amendment passed.
oh, okay. That's what I was trying to get to. So, all right, I get it now. So no, I totally agree with you 100%. So thank you for that. I apologize. I really thought it had passed. That's why I was confused. Okay.
Well, now
I'm
you've
sorry.
scared me, but I'll go look at
No.
it again. I'm
It's
reasonably sure. it
no, I
did.
think you're right. I think they were all voted down.
Because
I
we
do.
discussed this when we did the NNE manual at
Mhm.
NNE committee.
Okay. Well, you know better than I do. I know, and I like I said, I really don't know. That's totally honest. I have no idea. So
I
so
don't,
let's
I
see.
don't know if this, just while we're on this subject real quick, I don't know if this would require another meeting from us, but if we could get from NNE some sort of explanation on what it costs to, because I think we have, is there any staff that's there during the floor voting, or is it all volunteer?
It doesn't take anything. It's usually only about 4 people anyway. I mean,
It's
like,
all-
Right.
yeah.
Well, that's my
small
thought, is
number.
if there's any cost associated with it and it's a cost per vote kind of thing, if we could have that information on the ballot as an explanation, then that would help, I guess, explain why we're bringing it up again a second year in a row after it was, I think it was narrowly voted down, but.
Joel, the cost associated for staff is because we have to make sure that members are in good standing when they want to pick up a ballot. And we
Yeah.
still have that because we still have voting the morning of the AGM. We're still
Right.
doing that. And that is where you would pick up that floor voting ballot anyway. So
Yeah, I don't disagree. And we didn't get feedback in either. I mean, there's going to be some additional stuff that Richard still needs to give us feedback on some of these things with the new changes, to the 2403. So there's probably going to be, I know there's probably going to be more than this part that's going to have to be tweaked on that, because he hasn't given us those answers yet. So, but I agree. I think that I'm happy with it the way it is. All we need to know is if we split them into 2 questions, so we can, so these things we can go ahead and start moving them forward, right? And so is there any additional discussion?
Oh, just for Joel's question, the picking up of the ballots on the floor was volunteers.
Okay.
There were
Yeah, if there was
basically
any,
2 or 4
even if it's-
people wandered
if it's
around
like
with a box.
if we're putting in like 20 total volunteer hours to gather 4 votes or something like that, I mean, I think I can see both sides of it and why somebody wouldn't want to restrict the ways that they can vote. But when it's like 5 volunteer hours per vote, it's a really inefficient system at that point. So I just think however we can explain that in the explanation as to why we're asking the question again, because we are asking.
Part of it has to
second year in
do
a
with,
row.
if I understand correctly, part of the reason NNE doesn't want to do is it slows down the process, right? Because you have to finalize those slides, you have to finalize the votes. You can't do anything to get the floor votes in, correct? Where all the other voting's closed at a minimum 30 minutes ahead of that. Is that right, Nancy?
Pretty much after the people who vote in the morning have voted. The problem with floor voting is people continually bring in their ballot that they got mailed.
Mm-hmm.
and they hand it in on the floor because they see mail-in ballots being collected. You can see by the color of the envelope what it is. And they think, oh, he collected it or she collected it. It must be counted. Well, it's not. It's marked void and it doesn't count at all. And people are handing in these mail-in ballots thinking they voted, and they didn't vote for anything.
Right.
They voided their whole ballot because the mail-in ballot had to be in the day before, Friday afternoon, in that metal ballot box.
Yeah.
Or you had to go in the morning of the AGM between 9 and noon and sign up and get a different colored ballot and mail it then and hand it in, not mail US mail. I mean, put it in a ballot box then.
Well, I'm fine with that. I think it, I have been at plenty of those AGMs since I moved to Sun Valley, and there's maybe just, I think one year, I think I saw 4 people. And like you say, of those, I think I recall that maybe only one of them got, was a ballot on floor, even after they repeatedly tell everybody that you can't turn those in. It still happens. So, yeah, I'm okay with it. So we can just send it. So is there any more discussion on that, Joel? Do you have any other questions on this point?
Well, so did you understand what I was asking though? Like getting a concrete or somewhat concrete.
Put in explanations is what it is. What you're wanting to do is start putting explanations like what they do on the county ballots, right?
We already have something on the ballot, right? That'll say this is here. This will, it has the actual language that'll be adjusted, but then it explains what it is, right? I'm just wondering if we can get some as accurate of a number as possible of how many volunteer hours it would save or how much, whatever the impact is, like why it's beneficial, instead of just saying, do you want to get rid of on-floor voting with no further explanation or data as far as why someone would do that?
The last paragraph of explanation and purpose, I'll read it to you. It says, this amendment removes ballot voting from the floor. Previously, to allow for floor ballots, a special ballot had to be obtained and then submitted manually at the meeting. Unfortunately, members were turning in mailed ballots on the floor. Those mailed ballots were collected and not counted. By removing floor voting, we are preventing people from thinking their vote counted when it didn't. And that's the whole problem. No matter how many times you say you can't turn in your mailed ballot on the floor and have it count, people see it happening. They see it being collected and they think it's counting. And it's just, there's no way to break the cycle. I've lived here since 2006. And every year that happens.
Okay. Yeah, the only other thing I would want to add to that explanation is if there's a significant enough impact to, if the volunteers are going to be there anyway or something, if they're going to be there all morning, then it doesn't matter and nobody's really impacted by it. If it's half an hour extra work that somebody has to do for those 4 ballots, then that's fine. But if it's like, if we're putting in a lot of volunteer work to make sure that people are available to count these ballots or whatever, I think that's just worth mentioning, just to provide one more incentive for why we're bringing it up.
Yeah, it's not really extra work is what Nancy's saying. It's a minimal amount of work.
Then then that's not worth. So yeah, and in that case, we can submit it with the understanding that we're submitting the same thing as last year, but we still feel that it's worth asking again because it's because of the confusion and everything involved.
There was something of a credibility gap in some of those amendment proposals that they never were really explained. And I think people's mood was, I don't understand it. I don't know who wrote it and why, so I'm voting it down.
Well, and it's a
Right.
lot easier. That's exactly right, because we know there were a lot of changes slipped through over the years like that. And so I will admit, I'm one of those people. I vote straight no on these bylaw amendments because it's like, what's this going to do to us down the road?
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
I feel a little more confident, obviously, about these. And this is nice because this is a good one that allows more people to participate. It's not creating a restriction. You know,
Yeah.
and yeah. Okay, so do we need to just have a motion to put, move this forward along with, what we'll do, we're not going to move this until we get the full package of everything, all of the bylaw amendments and everything. But this way, this will get this off the table for us. And it'll go when we send everything to the attorney, then we'll send this to the attorney and we'll just allow him to give us feedback on whether or not those need to be split. And we'll just defer to him on that. So somebody want to make a motion?
Okay, I move to what Sonia just said. I'm not going to.
I second that motion. Because I don't remember what I just said. No, I do. So we'll let's see. Move this forward out of the document review committee to the attorney for review to be placed on the 2021 AGM ballot. This bylaw amendment, NNE bylaw proposed by the NNE committee to be moved forward. Sorry, I'm all over the place.
Can we add a condition that if it's approved by the attorney, it moves to the board of directors?
Yeah, that's what'll
Not back to-
happen.
That's
No, it
okay.
won't. Oh, yeah. This is it. We're getting it off our table. So once we
Wonderful.
do this, we're done with it. It'll just, what'll happen though is we just won't send it to the attorney immediately. We will, because we got a few more, and I think the board's going to have a few more. And so once they're all done, then we can, we'll just send them all as one. We'll submit it all as one to the attorney. But this will put it off our table.
Yes, Joel, you get another bite at the apple, which is an old saying.
I understood it. Okay, so so we had a motion. Do we have an additional discussion, or are we ready to take a vote?
Let's take a vote.
Okay, all in favor of this motion?
Yes.
Okay, and Joel gave us a oral.
Verbal.
Yes, yeah, verbal. So we are. So that passes unanimously, and so now we're going to. Let me move to the next one. Which one do you want to do next, Nancy? The dues.
Let's do proper, because it's a great example of sneaking something through.
Okay, proper purpose.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on just one sec. Okay. Okay, do you want to read it, Nancy, or you want me to?
You can read this one and talk about
Okay.
proper, because you were the one that tipped me off.
So basically this bylaw, a few years ago, there's a clauses in the bylaws that previously had said for proper purpose. Proper purpose is a legal term, and that also gives you a legal bite of what you're only, you're able to do things within the proper purpose of this corporation's actions. It was changed, and the community was told that it was being changed for the sake of clarity. It was in a list of bylaw changes that said that they were not significant changes. When you change a legal term to a non-legal term, it is a significant change. It's not an insignificant one. And not only that, they changed the entire definition when you're like for borrowing for proper purposes. That's in one section. It talks about borrowing for a proper purpose benefits the association membership and the association itself, right? Where Nancy's got that, but they had changed borrowing for proper purpose to borrowing for association purposes, which then allowed it to be open for any interpretation of the board of directors, and there were then no legal teeth if the board overstepped because you changed the term. There was nothing there that we could go, okay, you don't have the ability to do that, you overstepped. So what Nancy's requesting here, and I agree with, is that we need to go back and put that back properly, put proper purpose back and replace for association purposes with proper purpose, so that it puts the legal teeth back into the document.
And this is borrowing without a vote of the members also. Without approval of the members. This says the board can borrow money, no limits, without member approval.
And for any reason that they want. That's the problem.
That's when you took the word proper out. It was for any reason you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
It could be to build somebody a fancy mansion.
Or a new clubhouse. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, it was a way to override. It actually was put into place because the community was, repeatedly voting down the pieces of the revitalization. And so this was a way to get around that.
Right. It was a way to get to the $12 million loan to tear down the barn and rebuild the community or the event center. And
so again, no, it's just a way to it doesn't prevent a board. If a board borrows funds and they do not, it doesn't impact the dues. If it doesn't increase dues, a board can borrow funds, but it would still need to be within certain, legal parameters, right? It can't just be for anything. Does that make sense? Do you have questions, John? Did we lose him again? Well, Nancy, I think we vote for this since we.
Sorry, it sounds good to me.
Shoot,
Taking
we
forever
thought
to
we
unlock my
passed that
phone.
through.
No, go ahead.
No. We thought we had it made.
Yeah, I was aghast when I read that. And it was just the board, 5 people could take that $12 million loan by voting for it. And that would be it. There was no recourse. That just floored me. And it was time to look at least some ways to tamp that down.
So,
of course, it depends on the 5 people.
So I literally just I just pulled this up, but like proper purpose in corporate law basically is that the rule that the fiduciary powers of directors may be exercised only for the purposes for which they were conferred. It's one of the main means by which equity enforces the proper conduct of directors. By removing that, there is no legal teeth against a director acting improperly and making choices that basically are not in the best interest of the association. So it just puts it back to where it needs to be. So, any additional discussion?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So, do you want to make a motion, Nancy?
I move to send this on its way to the lawyer who can tuck it out and can put it back in.
I second the motion. Oh, wait, we don't have to do that. Okay, let's take a vote. I'm so
Yes.
sorry.
I third the motion. I think that means it passes.
All right, that passed unanimously. Okay, so let me pull up the next one sec. Okay, so can you see that? Did it come up? Okay, do you want to explain this one?
Yeah, what we have in our bylaws right now is a incomprehensible explanation of how budget votes work. It says, go read the bylaw, and gives the RCW reference. Well, you can do that and you still won't understand it. I mean, so people really don't know what the rules are for how the bylaw, how our dues are voted on. And that it really is the choice of the board of directors as to what goes on the ballot. And then there's the basically impossible requirement that all of the votes have to be counted. Even if you don't turn in your ballot, you've basically voted for whatever the board of directors put up there. So I put it in a black box warning because that's the standard for medical things. A black box is a warning that the FDA requires for drugs and devices on the market to alert the public to serious side effects. So how else do you put it? I don't want to put it in color because then you can't print it on black and white paper. And not everybody has a color printer. Or the highlighting comes out gray and it's hard to read. So it's a black box. I think that's the most appropriate way to do it. The lawyer may not think that way.
Well, this is my thought on it. Okay, so because what you're talking about doing too is, so when this first happened, there is something that was added inside the bylaws that was it was really intended to be a footnote to explain that even though our bylaws, because the membership did not want to change this language talking about the vote of not less than 60%, because if for any reason, which is pretty slim, but if for any reason that we are able to change Wakaiowa or somehow get a reprieve from being governed under that as a pre-existing community, if we change our bylaw to align with Wakaiowa, we're stuck with it forever. If we leave this prior language, will be if we're somehow we get that exemption. And again, it's slim, but you just never know. And if we leave that, then we revert back and we're grandfathered with our old language. So the middle ground was that the attorney had said, because the previous board at the time had said that it's going to confuse members, right? When they, and it's true, because you're saying it says 60% vote of the membership, but Wakiowa is saying it's a veto vote. So Richard Davis, the attorney, had suggested a footnote to explain the difference between the two, but the previous board put a big old highlighted weird thing right in the middle of the bylaws, which actually make it look like it's actually bylaw language, which it shouldn't be in there. And we have talked with the attorney. I can confirm that a few weeks ago, that is not what he meant when he said included in the bylaws. He literally meant a footnote. My thought on this is that we could send it to him like this and just ask him for his recommendation. But either way, we remove those highlights out the way that they're done, so that it doesn't look like, because 10 years from now, when somebody looks at that, they're not going to know any of this. They won't recall it, and they're going to think that's bylaw language. It's not a footnote because it's inserted inside the bylaws.
Okay.
So I think it's fair enough to ask him how, because I agree with you. I think that he's not going to be okay with the after years of intense lobbying language. But I'm fine with sending it to him and asking what he's comfortable with. I think it's fine to do it as a black box. I think it would draw the right type of attention. And it just may be the wording needs to be different.
Well, the reason I put in the Community Associations Institute.
Oh, I know why you do.
In there is because they're not finished with us.
Mm-hmm.
There will be more. And it's useful for people to be able to see, well, they did this before and it didn't work out so great for the membership. What are they up to again? So it's almost a black box warning against the Community Associations Institute, which you've probably figured out is not my favorite organization. And it's probably not the favorite organization of your average Sudden Valley member, because it took away our right to vote on the budget.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing, I don't have a problem sending it forward like this, and he, like I said, and letting him determine what can stay in here safely and what can't. And the only thing is, it goes in this arrangement, owners who do not vote have effectively voted to approve, which I agree, but it is just a veto vote. We could explain it that way too, that, what I'm saying, that because that's what that is. And you don't vote for, no county decisions are made that way. No, there are no other monetary decisions made this way. This veto votes are designed to ensure that they pass, that legislation or whatever passes. That's what that is. And it's a pretty underhanded thing to do to people that work hard for the money, and basically saying, well, you don't get to have a right. If we were a condo, it would be more legitimate, because you need to take care of the building. It can't fall down around you, etc. But that's not the case. These are single family homes, and there's absolutely no reason to put this type of burden on the homeowners, So, Joel, do you have any other comments or questions or anything?
No, I think it should have as much teeth as we can give it. So send it like this and let them prune it as needed. But
Okay.
yeah, might as well start strong and go from there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good with that. Okay, so I'm gonna throw it to Nancy again. You wanna make a motion?
Yes, and it did start stronger than it is there. I have watered that down. The thing that my standard was everything in that box had to be accurate and true. And I've met that. It's just not politically correct, probably. But anyway, I move we send this to the attorney and see what he has to say.
Yeah, so what this will do in effect, we're asking him to remove the highlighted, we would like it to be set up to amend the bylaws footnote that was incorrectly inserted inside the bylaws and replace it with an actual black boxed footnote that is acceptable legally, that will actually explain why our bylaws do appear to conflict with the state law. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. I vote to do that. How about you guys?
Yes.
All right. Okay, that passes unanimously. So we're still in new business, but I didn't have time to kind of draft it up, but we've talked about this before. The other bylaw amendment was one of it was just to clean up the bylaw limitation amendment because the previous board, there was the explanation had been excluded in the vote. They voted to leave the explanation with the calculation out. And by doing that, they tried to say, well, the language of the question or the limitation allowed them to not calculate it the way it was supposed to be. And they were basically throwing in non-dues revenue, so it changed the entire, when you're talking about a 7% limitation, well, you go throwing in all these non-dues revenues and everything else, it changes that number. So we just needed to tidy that up. But the one thing that happened recently that I think you guys are aware of is that our former interim GM found a loophole and found a way to bypass the bylaw limitation of 7% by saying, I'm not raising dues, but what he did was reallocate. He was basically going to reallocate the reserves, which would have virtually depleted our reserve, our SURF reserves, because what he put forward, just on initial glance, without digging into even all the numbers, we were close to almost 900,000 deficit budget. It was over 800,000 deficit. And it was all coming from, he wasn't raising dues, which means it was all coming from our reserves. You can't do that, obviously. The board does have an ability to reallocate, and sometimes it's appropriate to reallocate, but not in any kind of degree that impacts the purpose of those reserves. And so we've now figured out, hey, we need to expand this limitation. That's something I think we're going to have to get advice from the attorney. I don't really know the exact language or how to actually do that, I guess is what I'm saying. So what I'd like from you guys on that one is what I'd like for us to do is advise the board, make a recommendation to the board to request the attorney's not necessarily opinion, but some language on altering that to protect improper reallocation of reserves to bypass that the dues limitation. And so and then we'll put it in front of the board at the next meeting so that the board can request the attorney to work on that. Because I don't know the language. I mean, that's a pretty complicated thing, and I don't know the language to do that. So does that sound good that you guys feel confident, I mean, are okay with us doing that?
I couldn't touch it. I don't know enough to write that.
Yeah, but we feel good that we want that, right? That we want him to, okay.
We want it, just don't know how to say it.
Yeah, so Joel, any discussion or comment?
Nope, that sounds good.
Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I was still screen sharing here. Sorry. I'm looking at you guys a little bitty and I just got you so used to it. I forgot what I was doing. So, all right. So I move that the document review committee recommend to the board to request the attorney to create language to ensure that any reallocation of our dues assessments does not exceed a predetermined limit that calculates to no more than that 7% bylaw limitation. Does that sound good? I don't know what the language is. What do I say? Well, you want to just say 7%?
What was your
You
last
could
question?
just go ahead, Joel.
Oh, what was the last thing that you asked?
I mean, we could just say 7%, so we don't have to try to figure out a calculation for 7%. That's what's the 7% dues allocation. I mean, the dues limitation. We could just say you can't reallocate you can't reallocate more than 7%.
You can't reallocate to exceed the bylaw dues limitation.
Okay.
Or is that too?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either.
Okay, we're just going to request advice of the attorney of how do we, what's the right language, what to provide the correct language to ensure that that the reserves aren't depleted to bypass the bylaw limitation.
Yeah.
And just that he can figure it out. Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so old business. Hold on just a sec. Old business, actually, so we had gone through the the contracting policies and stuff, and those had gotten kind of put aside, and we can revisit all of them, but for today mainly, I want to tell you about this emergency contracting policy because we have a lot of stuff that's coming up lately, and because we haven't passed this policy, it's confusing for like our managers of what they can and can't do. So what this policy does do is that it's what we had started to outline. It is what we outlined. It's the same emergency policy we had gone over several months ago, where it basically is talking about they can do emergency repairs. If it's a health and safety issue, they can do repairs. You can't do betterment. This is just to repair it as needed. It's an emergency repair, period. It goes above and beyond. You've got to go back through the standard bid process, and just the same way you would for any other type of a contract for work. But this just means this gives them the ability that, let's say that we have some system failure, like the plumbing has burst out or anything like that, middle of the night type stuff, that they need to get, they need to have the authority to act on that without having to either get GM approval or whoever is acting in the capacity of the GM's approval, but they can act on health and safety matters. on their own, but it does, the nice thing about it is it spells out very specifically what they can and can't do within that, right? So that it provides that whole emergency contact where it explains what all they can do, and then the type of work where if it's going to be like an upgrade or anything like that, then like I said, they'll have to go back and get the normal 3 bids and go through the regular processing for a request to do that. So does that make sense? So what I'd like to do is for us to pass this out of our committee so that we can put that in front of the board for the next board meeting, so that the board can go ahead and pass that policy so that we can empower the our managers, because like I said, we've had a couple of issues just in the last month that have come up, and it's slowed a few things down, nothing bad, but it would have just helped them if they had this in front of them to know what they could and couldn't do and everything. So does that sound good?
There's one small thing I just had wanted to change and never did. It's state of emergency.
Okay.
Instead of saying a widespread disaster in which the mayor of Bellingham or the governor has declared, let's just say the county executive has declared, because we're not really in Bellingham, or you could just add county executive to the list.
Okay. And so it would read, in the event of a widespread disaster in which the county executive or the SVCA board of directors or the SVCA executive committee, where 48 hours notice cannot be given for a special board meeting, has approved a Sudden Valley community-wide emergency declaration. So we would just substitute it like that.
Yeah, I'd leave or the governor in there too.
Okay.
Yeah, just in which the county executive or the governor.
Okay. And then
we're not under the mayor, and
okay.
God knows what some of those mayors might do.
Okay. And again, and the purpose is that is Sudden Valley's intent to immediately repair or restore essential Sudden Valley facilities or infrastructure if damage or failure occurs. This policy establishes guidelines and procedures that will direct how the SVCA and administrating departments will respond. Administrating departments. Because again, that's what we are running into, right? Is that so it's been like 3 different times I've had to go through the whole explanation of, okay, you can do this, but you can't do that. You can do this, but you can't do that. And it would just, if they had a piece of paper that gave them the instructions, I would have never had to talk to them. Basically, they know their jobs. They just weren't sure about what if they called. Is anybody going? They didn't know if they needed authorization for money, that type of thing. And so it's like, this really tells you right on what you can and what is an emergency, what isn't an emergency, right? And what's required. So is Joel, you have any other, got any questions or anything? Or comments?
No, it sounds good.
Okay, so I move to put this forward to the board of directors with the change that Nancy mentioned of replacing the mayor of Bellingham with the county executive, and to pass it forward to the board of directors. I vote for that.
I vote yes.
Okay, all right. So is there anything else anybody wants to add or talk about? And then of course we need to schedule another meeting. The board will be sending it. I know that we have those financial, a lot of what we have left is financial policies. The bylaw, I'll get that information from the attorney, but I think once we request it of the board, we won't need to, that probably shouldn't need to come back to us. The bylaw amendment thing, it'll just probably stay over with the board at that point. Not the bylaw, the bylaw limitation amendment. Once it comes back from the attorney, it'll just go back to the board. The board may send a couple of things. meanwhile, what we have left is to be trying to deal with those, like the financial policy package, those types of things. So we still have a bunch of stuff on our plate and finishing out, like the contract and policies and stuff, but we've got most of that done. We did that, like a few months ago. So we just need to schedule like another meeting, but we can meanwhile just do what we can correspond about that on via email, you know what I'm saying, and then come back with them in the meeting. When do you guys want to meet again?
Wednesdays are not my favorite day to meet. So do you want the meetings to be during the day or in the evening? I guess is what.
It's whatever works for both of you. I'm pretty flexible.
Yeah.
Daytime usually works, but should we wait until we know whether something's going to be sent back to us
we
next
still
time,
have,
or is there stuff already on the?
Yeah, we still have those contracts. Remember the contracts that we worked on? We still need to just put those back forward. We were almost finished with them. There were just, I think, it was just a couple of things, and then we were ready to send them to the finance committee. So we just need to review them, and I just want to make sure we got these bylaws out of the way, because of the calendar for the AGM and everything. So everything else is policy. And I mean, I'm not saying there won't be more, but as far as bylaw, but this is what we have right now. And so the contract and things almost done. We just, like I said, need to review it, and then we can send that on to finance. But we do need to just finish that financial package that we had kind of started. And then there was the thing about redoing the policy for remote virtual meetings, but then the new 2403 also addresses that. So that's one of those things we're waiting for. We need the attorney to tell us, because that'll probably be the language that we follow. Is probably just whatever it's talking about in 2403. So we don't have to use our brains too much on that one. And let's see what else. So the board also sent to us to ask us for assistance in creating a board policy manual. So we need to just work with staff. I can ask staff to actually put all of the existing policies together, and what they're just asking us to review those, and if anything's missing, suggest what needs to be included, etc. So yeah, we do have outstanding business left that we can work on that. So I think it's a good idea if we go ahead and schedule.
I prefer to avoid Wednesdays.
Okay.
At noon. I could do it in the evening, but.
So do you guys want to meet like is it 2 weeks, or what do you think? Joel, I know you got some stuff coming up.
Yeah, in 2 weeks, that's going to be the next board meeting. So is a week too soon if we did like this coming Thursday around noon, or Friday?
Actually, that I would be okay with that, because we could probably get through, the contracting policy stuff, because we did most of that. So if nothing else, we can try to start pushing these things out that we've done most of the work on, and push that forward to the finance committee and everything. So I would be okay with that. What about you, Nancy?
I prefer Friday if you want to do it in a week at 11, if that's what you want, or noon, if that's what you want.
11's good with me.
11
too.
sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say, so that's going to be Friday the 30th at 11. And I think it's awesome. And of course, I put 11 p.m., so I'm going to be really late to that meeting here. Oh, God. Okay. Do you know Joel Heverling, the accountant, literally told Rachel that there was a meeting scheduled at 11 p.m. and she was like preparing to be ready because he doesn't like to be at early meetings. And he said, it's well, for night owls, we decided we needed to schedule the meeting at 11 p.m. And she's like, okay. Just like, oh my God. Because he's like, I hate getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning and having to have meetings. So he got her back anyway. It was pretty funny. But okay. So I think I'm good. Do you guys, anybody have anything to add? And
send us send us copies of what you want to discuss. Just email it.
Okay.
Because we got a lot of things and I'm not exactly sure what you're describing.
Okay.
So just mail us copies.
Okay. Anything else, Joel?
Sorry, no, it takes forever to open the app every time I do. That's why there's that delay.
I'm sorry. It's okay. Well, so
no, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, we'll see what we're going to talk about and then talk about it Friday.
Okay, awesome. And so I guess we'll just, John, can you just see if there's any community questions?
Sure. We do have Linda with us. I'm not sure if she wanted to jump in. Yep, she's got her hand raised, so I'll go ahead and bring her on over here.
Oh, wait, let me stop sharing here real quick. Sorry about that.
Sorry, we meant anyone except for Linda.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, we made a special policy.
All right, Linda, I brought you on over.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to answer Joel's question more than anything. The actual vote from last year, it takes any of these bylaw amendments take a 2/3 majority of voting members. And last year we got 63.27% in favor. So we just barely missed being able to eliminate floor voting last year.
All right, yeah, that's what I thought.
You know, I just, that was the whole thing of, you had asked about that and I just wanted to throw that in there. That's all.
Well, that might be the good point to make. Like Joel was, I mean, in addition to the way Nancy wrote that, like just add that additionally that, this was voted on last year and most people wanted it. A majority of people did want it. So
Floor voting is a holdover from when you used to have a different type of voting, and we used to vote from the floor for N&E members, that sort of thing. You got a little thing when we had proxies, it was a whole different thing. And I guess the thing that's also how it holds up the counting is might be one or two people who take their ballots that they get in the morning and they wait until they can vote from the floor. And besides invalidating mail-in ballots, you have to wait for those 2 ballots, even though they're only 2 ballots, before you can have a final tabulation to send up the unofficial results. And that's how it locks up stuff.
okay, well, hopefully we won't have to deal with it again after this year.
I hope so. I just, it's like people think and I don't know what we're going to do. That's a question that I need to ask of the board. Are we going to be doing a Zoom meeting for November again? Or are we going back to in person? And right now, to me, that's kind of maybe up in the air.
Well, especially with this, things keep changing too, so I think we probably need to anticipate that if nothing else, it will be virtual and we may be able to have in person too, but I think we're going to have to plan on this.
We're going to have to plan because the agenda and everything else, it's a big difference if it's a Zoom meeting. There has to be the link put in there that goes out to everyone. and in the balloting, and that's going to be in September already. And that's just, it's a decision to make. You know, it's, you know, like I say, right now, there's so much up in the air that, you know, but it's a decision to make. You know, we certainly are able to do that. And it's probably the safest course of action to do it that way at this time. You know, unless all of a sudden a whole lot more people going to get vaccinated. So this business slows down, you know, the spread of the virus and stuff, because I don't know how much we want to put 50 people in the dance barn.
Well, yeah, it's really weird. Those restrictions are really strange still anyway, even though they're talking about what's opened up, there's still some kind of weird restrictions on things like that. So I don't know, Linda, I think maybe bring it up at the next, you know, put it on the agenda for the next.
I've been trying to get something to get something in the meetings. Well, you know that we've had that conversation.
So I would just I would go ahead and just email the board and just say on the next agenda, I want this placed on the next agenda because of the calendar. You know, we need to make a decision.
It has to do with making arrangements, you know, and letting people, you know, how do I say it? I think we'll be able to do a much more broadened in-person voting. Who knows though? You know, it can't be any worse than last year when we were 5 people in a room and no more.
I thought it went well last year. I didn't have a problem with it. I voted the day of and went down there and it was like, yo, it actually was just fine. I thought everything was, I mean, I know it was you guys went to a lot of trouble. You know what I mean? It was a lot of work to do all of that, but it
wasn't just doing it that way. You had to have the approval of the county health department and everybody else before you. Yeah, Nancy, I like that look. That's how I felt too when they told me that.
Maybe this year we'll just have a Zoom meeting and we won't have to have a separate approval to do that because they'll have out their guidelines that say X people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And 6 feet apart or whatever the magic number is.
Yeah. And I don't even know if you get 50 chairs.
And we won't have to take temperatures maybe because the thermometers don't work outside in the cold.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. We finally had to ask people to step inside the door, just inside the door, because they just don't. They're, you know, it was just way too chilly out. Oh, well, anyway, but that was the vote last year. You know what it is. You know, hopefully we can resolve some of this other stuff this year for what we do and where we do. And I'll try doing it again for the next board meeting. You know, I think we may have the board a chance to vote to fill one of the vacancies at least too. So we'll see what we see.
Well, we know we're going to put we're going to put one of these requests, these recommendations forward, and they'll need to be done for the AGM. So I think it'd be a good time to put it on the ballot because we'll be talking about the AGM.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
All right, cool.
All right.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye,
Linda.
Okay, you guys. Somebody want to move to adjourn?
Were there any other community commenters? Okay, that was John's joke. Okay. You got
quiet. No.
I move we adjourn.
Okay. I second that. I'm going to guess Joel does. Joel thirds it. So thank you guys for.
I do.
Okay.